Chosen one, this is your confirmation. Do not leave this season yet. What God is preparing for you is far closer than you think. There is a curious pattern that appears throughout life, and once you begin to notice it, you see it everywhere. The most significant changes rarely announce themselves with noise. They do not arrive with certainty, public recognition, or a detailed explanation. Instead, they often begin as a quiet awareness, a subtle shift within the soul that cannot yet be proven by external evidence. Before a person changes cities, careers, relationships, or even their understanding of themselves, something changes internally. The movement begins long before anyone else can see it. This is why many people struggle during seasons of transition. They are waiting for visible confirmation before they trust what they already sense. They believe certainty should come first, and action should follow. Yet life frequently works in the opposite direction. The conviction comes first. The evidence comes later. Think about how human beings are conditioned to make decisions. We are taught to trust what can be measured, verified, and explained. We look for guarantees. We seek reassurance from circumstances. We want a map before we begin the journey. But some of the most important decisions in life cannot be made that way. If every step were already visible, faith would be unnecessary. Courage would be unnecessary. Growth itself would be unnecessary. What often happens is that a person begins to feel increasingly uncomfortable in a place where they once felt settled. Nothing may appear wrong from the outside. Their environment has not changed dramatically. Their routine remains familiar. Yet something within them refuses to be satisfied. They begin sensing that they are standing at the edge of a new chapter. Many people misinterpret this feeling. They assume something is broken. They believe they have become ungrateful or impatient. But sometimes the discomfort is not evidence of failure. Sometimes it is evidence of preparation. The very restlessness you are trying to eliminate may be the signal that your current season is reaching its conclusion. Psychologically speaking, growth creates tension. Human beings naturally seek stability. But growth requires movement. There comes a point when the person you are becoming can no longer fit comfortably inside the life you have been living. The values that once guided you begin to evolve. Your priorities shift. Your perspective expands. What once felt sufficient now feels limiting. This creates an internal conflict. Part of you wants to remain where everything is familiar. Another part of you senses that remaining still may become more painful than moving forward. This tension is not accidental. It is often the birthplace of transformation. The challenge is that no one else can feel this transition the way you do. They see your current circumstances. They see your history. They see the version of you they have always known. What they cannot see is the quiet work taking place within you. This is why seeking constant validation from others can become dangerous during moments of change. People tend to evaluate your future through the lens of your past. They offer advice based on what makes sense to them, yet the deepest callings in life often make little sense at the beginning. History is filled with individuals who moved toward a future that was invisible to everyone around them. Before any achievement became obvious, there was a season when their confidence existed without evidence. There was a period when they had nothing to rely on except the conviction that they were being led towards something greater. That conviction matters more than most people realize. The world teaches us to trust certainty, but some of life's greatest opportunities require us to trust direction instead. Certainty says, I know exactly what will happen. Direction says, I know which way I must go. One is based on complete information. The other is based on wisdom and faith. And perhaps that is why so many people miss their moment. They wait until the path is undeniable. They wait until everyone agrees. They wait until there is no risk left. By then, the opportunity has often passed. If you feel that quiet sense that something is changing, do not dismiss it, simply because others cannot see it yet. The most important moves in life begin long before they become visible. They start in the hidden places of the heart, where vision is formed before reality catches up. Remember this, A new chapter does not begin when everyone recognizes it. It begins the moment you do. One of the most difficult lessons a person will ever learn is that not everyone is qualified to advise them about their future. This sounds harsh at first, because we are taught to value the opinions of others, to seek counsel, and to remain open to feedback. There is wisdom in that. Yet there is a difference between receiving guidance and surrendering your direction. There is a difference between listening to people and allowing them to determine the course of your life. When you sense that a major transition is approaching, one of the strongest temptations is to seek permission. You want someone to confirm what you already feel. You want reassurance that you are not making a mistake. You want a respected voice to tell you that the path ahead is safe. This desire is understandable. Human beings are social creatures. We fear isolation. We fear rejection. We fear making decisions that separate us from the approval of those around us. But there is a hidden danger in making approval a requirement for action. The truth is that most people evaluate possibilities through the lens of their own experiences. They do not see the world as it is. They see it as they are. Their fears influence their advice. Their limitations influence their expectations. Their disappointments influence their predictions. When they tell you what is possible, they are often describing the boundaries of their own imagination rather than the boundaries of reality. Consider how often extraordinary opportunities appear unreasonable at first. The future almost always looks unrealistic before it becomes obvious. Every significant achievement, every meaningful transformation, and every courageous decision begins as something that most people cannot fully understand. This is because people are naturally attached to what is familiar. Familiarity creates comfort, and comfort creates the illusion of security. When someone sees you preparing to move beyond what is familiar, they may become uncomfortable, not because your decision is wrong, but because it challenges their understanding of what is normal. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Human beings seek stability. We construct identities around routines, relationships, and expectations. When one person changes, it often forces others to confront the possibility that they, too, may need to change. Rather than face that discomfort, some will discourage the very growth they secretly admire. That is why you must be careful whose voice becomes the loudest in your life. Not every critic is an enemy. Not every supporter is wise. And not every person who loves you can see where you are being led. Some people genuinely care about you and still misunderstand your calling. Their intentions may be pure, but their perspective is limited. There is a profound philosophical truth here. No one else can live your life for you. Others can offer opinions, but they cannot bear the consequences of your choices. They cannot experience your deepest convictions. They cannot feel the quiet pull that keeps returning to your mind when the noise of the day fades away. At some point, every person must decide whether they will live according to their own understanding of purpose or according to the expectations of the crowd. History repeatedly demonstrates that meaningful progress requires a willingness to disappoint people, not through arrogance, not through rebellion, but through obedience to a vision that others cannot yet see. The crowd usually celebrates success after it happens. What they rarely celebrate is the lonely period before success becomes visible. They applaud the outcome while forgetting the uncertainty that preceded it. Yet that uncertain season is where courage is formed. If you spend your life waiting for universal agreement, you will remain trapped in places you have already outgrown. There will always be someone who doubts your decision. There will always be someone who believes your ambitions are unrealistic. There will always be someone who thinks you should stay exactly where you are because your growth makes them uncomfortable. You cannot allow that to determine your future. This does not mean becoming stubborn or refusing wisdom. It means recognizing that there are moments when conviction must be stronger than consensus. There are seasons when the quiet certainty within you deserves more attention than the loud opinions around you. The people who change their lives are rarely the people who receive the most approval at the approval. They are the people who learn to move forward despite uncertainty, criticism, and misunderstanding. They understand that a vision does not become true because others believe it. It becomes true because they have the courage to act on it. So if you feel yourself standing at the edge of a new season, stop waiting for everyone to understand. Stop waiting for unanimous support. Stop treating permission as a prerequisite for progress. Because the future was never placed in the hands of the crowd. It was placed in yours. And sometimes the most courageous step you can take is to trust what you know, even when no one else can see it yet. If you truly believe a move is coming, then preparation cannot wait until the day of departure. This is where many people make a critical mistake. They assume preparation begins when circumstances change. They think they will adjust their mindset, habits, and priorities once the new opportunity arrives. But life rarely works that way. The people who thrive in a new season are usually the ones who prepared for it long before it became visible. Imagine someone who knows they are moving to a new home in 30 days. It would be strange for them to spend 29 days doing nothing and then attempt to pack everything on the final night. The transition would become chaotic, stressful, and overwhelming. Yet psychologically, this is exactly how many people approach change. They wait for the external move before doing the internal work. The reality is that every meaningful transition requires a kind of packing long before any physical movement occurs. The question is not merely, what am I moving toward? The deeper question is, what am I carrying with me? Human beings have a remarkable ability to transport old patterns into new environments. They change locations but keep the same fears. They enter new relationships but carry old wounds. They receive new opportunities but remain trapped by old beliefs. As a result, the external circumstances improve, while the internal experience remains largely unchanged. This reveals an important truth. A new chapter cannot fully transform a person who refuses to examine what belongs to the previous one. One of the greatest obstacles to growth is attachment. We become attached to identities, routines, expectations, and even disappointments. Strange as it may seem, people often become comfortable with the very things that limit them. Familiar burdens can feel safer than unfamiliar freedom. Psychologists have long observed that the human mind prefers predictability, even when that predictability is painful. We often cling to known difficulties because unknown possibilities feel uncertain. This is why letting go can be more challenging than moving forward. The challenge is rarely the future itself. The challenge is releasing the past. Before any significant transition, there are things that must be packed away and things that must be left behind. Perhaps it is an old belief that tells you you are not capable enough. Perhaps it is the constant need for approval that keeps you dependent on the opinions of others. Perhaps it is resentment from a past disappointment that continues to shape your decisions. Perhaps it is fear disguised as caution, convincing you that safety and stagnation are the same thing. Whatever it is, the weight of these things becomes more obvious as you prepare to enter a new season. Think about how travelers prepare for a long journey. They do not take everything they own. They select carefully. They understand that every unnecessary item increases the burden of the trip. The same principle applies to personal growth. Not everything from your past deserves a place in your future. This requires honesty. It requires looking at your habits and asking whether they support the person you are becoming. It requires examining your thinking and determining whether it reflects possibility or great limitation. It requires evaluating your relationships and recognizing which ones encourage growth and asking which ones quietly resist it. Such reflection is not always comfortable. In fact, it is often deeply uncomfortable. But discomfort is frequently the price of transformation. You cannot organize your future without first sorting through your present. There is also something profoundly empowering about preparation. When you begin making internal adjustments before external circumstances change, you stop living reactively. You stop waiting for life to happen to you. Instead, you begin participating in your own development. You become ready before the opportunity arrives. And readiness is powerful, because opportunities often appear suddenly. From the outside, people may describe success as luck or timing. What they fail to see is the hidden preparation that made the opportunity possible. They notice the door opening, but overlook the years spent becoming the kind of person capable of walking through it. That is why preparation matters so much. The future has a way of arriving faster than expected. When it does, there is rarely time to become a different person overnight. The qualities you will need tomorrow must be developed today. The mindset required for the next chapter must be cultivated before the chapter begins. So if you sense that a move is coming, start packing now, not your possessions, but your mind. Pack away excuses. Pack away limiting beliefs. Pack away habits that no longer serve you. Leave behind the unnecessary weight that belongs to an older version of yourself. Because the people who step confidently into a new season are not necessarily the most talented or the most fortunate. They are often the ones who prepared in advance for a future they could not yet see. And when the door finally opens, they do not panic. They do not hesitate. They are ready. Because they packed long before it was time to leave. There comes a moment in many people's lives when what once felt comfortable begins to feel strangely restrictive. Nothing dramatic has happened. The environment may be the same. The routine may be unchanged. The people around them may see no reason for concern. Yet internally, something feels different. A quiet dissatisfaction begins to emerge. A restlessness appears that cannot easily be explained. Most people interpret this feeling incorrectly. They assume something is wrong with them. They think they have become impatient, ungrateful, or incapable of appreciating what they already have. As a result, they spend enormous amounts of energy trying to eliminate the discomfort rather than understand it. But what if the discomfort is not the problem? What if the discomfort is the message? One of the great misunderstandings about personal growth is the belief that growth should always feel good. In reality, growth often feels unsettling. It challenges familiar patterns. It disrupts comfortable routines. It forces us to confront limitations we would rather ignore. The very process of becoming more often requires letting go of what once felt secure. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Human beings are designed to seek stability. We build habits, structures, and identities that help us navigate the world with confidence. These structures serve an important purpose. They create order. They reduce uncertainty. They provide a sense of belonging. Yet there is a hidden danger in becoming too attached to them. A structure that once supported your growth can eventually restrict it. A season that once developed you can eventually contain you. What was once a blessing can become a limitation if you remain there beyond its purpose. Consider how a child eventually outgrows clothing that once fit perfectly. There is nothing wrong with the clothing. It served its purpose. But continuing to wear it becomes increasingly uncomfortable because the child has grown beyond it. The same principle applies to many areas of life. Sometimes the discomfort you feel is not evidence that you are failing. It is evidence that you are expanding. The person you are becoming no longer fits comfortably within the boundaries that once defined you. This can happen in your thinking. Ideas that once satisfied you no longer seem sufficient. Questions emerge that demand deeper answers. You begin seeking greater meaning, greater purpose, and greater understanding. It can happen in your ambitions. Goals that once seemed exciting lose their power to motivate you. Achievements that once felt significant no longer provide the fulfillment they once did. It can happen in your environment. Places that once inspired you begin to feel limiting. Conversations become repetitive. Familiar routines start to feel empty. The natural temptation is to suppress these feelings. After all, change introduces uncertainty, and uncertainty can be frightening. The known struggle often feels safer than the unknown opportunity. This is why so many people remain in seasons they have already outgrown. They mistake familiarity for destiny. They assume that because something has been part of their life for a long time, it must remain part of their life forever. Yet history teaches a different lesson. Every stage of development requires movement. Every meaningful transformation involves leaving something behind. The very nature of growth demands progression. What is particularly challenging is that growth rarely provides complete instructions. You may feel the discomfort long before you understand where it is leading. You may recognize that your current season is ending before you have clarity about the next one. This uncertainty can create anxiety. The mind naturally wants answers. It wants timelines, guarantees, and detailed explanations. But life often provides direction before it provides certainty. And perhaps this is intentional. If we always knew every detail of the journey, we would rely entirely on our calculations. Instead, growth often requires trust. It asks us to move forward while still carrying unanswered questions. The discomfort then becomes a guide rather than an enemy. It forces us to pay attention. It invites us to examine whether our current environment still aligns with our future. It challenges us to ask difficult questions about who we are becoming and what kind of life we are being called to build. The most successful people are not those who avoid discomfort. They are those who learn to interpret it correctly. They understand that discomfort is not always a signal to retreat. Sometimes it is a signal to advance. Sometimes the very tension you are trying to escape is evidence that something greater is trying to emerge. So if you find yourself feeling restless, unsettled, or increasingly aware that your current season no longer fits the person you are becoming, do not rush to silence that feeling. Listen to it carefully, because growth often whispers before it speaks loudly, and the discomfort you're experiencing today may not be warning you that something is wrong. It may be revealing that it is finally time to move. One of the most overlooked principles of transformation is the power of silence. We live in a world that encourages constant sharing. The moment someone has an idea, they announce it. The moment they make a decision, they post about it. The moment they begin pursuing a goal, they seek an audience. There is an understandable desire behind this. People want support. They want encouragement. They want others to celebrate the vision they see for themselves. Yet not everything that is valuable should be immediately revealed. Some things grow stronger in private. Consider how nature operates. The most important stages of growth are often hidden from view. A seed develops beneath the soil long before anyone sees evidence of life above the surface. Roots expand in darkness before branches reach toward the sky. The invisible work comes first. The visible results come later. Human development follows a similar pattern. Many people sabotage their progress because they mistake announcing a vision for accomplishing it. They speak so much about what they intend to do that the talking begins to replace the doing. The excitement of sharing the dream creates a temporary sense of satisfaction, reducing the urgency to pursue it. Psychologists have observed something fascinating about this phenomenon. When people publicly declare certain goals, they sometimes experience a premature feeling of achievement. The recognition they receive can trick the mind into feeling progress before meaningful action has occurred. As a result, motivation decreases rather than increases. This is one reason silence can be so powerful. Silence protects focus. When a vision remains private, it has room to mature. It develops without the pressure of constant outside opinions. It grows without the need for immediate validation. It becomes rooted in conviction rather than applause. This is important because not everyone will understand your next season. Some people evaluate every new possibility through the limitations of their current perspective. They do not intend to discourage you, but their doubts can quietly influence your confidence. A dream that feels clear in your heart can become clouded after enough exposure to skepticism. That is why wisdom requires discernment. The question is not whether people support you. The question is whether they are capable of seeing what you see. Not everyone is, and that is perfectly normal. People can only interpret your future through the experiences available to them. If they have never walked the path you are considering, they may struggle to imagine where it leads. Their uncertainty is not necessarily proof that your vision is wrong. It may simply reveal the limits of their perspective. This is why every significant transition requires a period of protected development. Think of an architect designing a building. Before construction begins, there is a season of planning, measuring, and refining. Imagine how chaotic the process would become if every unfinished sketch were presented for public debate. Every opinion would pull the design in a different direction. Progress would slow. Clarity would disappear. The same thing happens in life. When you expose every idea, every goal, and every possibility to constant discussion, you risk becoming distracted by voices that were never meant to guide you. Instead of listening to your own conviction, you begin managing other people's reactions. Soon, your energy shifts from preparation to explanation, and explanation is exhausting. Many people spend more time defending their future than building it. They become trapped in endless conversations, trying to convince others that their vision makes sense. Yet the truth is that some things cannot be explained in advance. They can only be demonstrated through results. This requires patience. It requires the humility to work quietly while others remain unaware of what is happening. It requires confidence, strong enough to continue preparing, even when no one is applauding. It requires the discipline to let your actions speak before your words do. There is also a deeper philosophical lesson here. Silence teaches self-reliance. When no one knows what you are building, your motivation must come from within. You cannot depend on praise. You cannot depend on attention. You cannot depend on external approval. The work itself becomes your focus, and that focus is incredibly valuable, because the strongest foundations are often built in hidden places. By the time the world notices the change, the real transformation has already occurred. The visible success is simply the final chapter of a story that was written in private. So if you believe a move is coming, resist the urge to announce every detail. Resist the temptation to seek validation before taking action. Protect the vision while it is still developing. Give it space to grow roots before asking it to bear fruit. Because not every revelation is meant for public discussion. Some of the most important chapters of your life must first be lived in silence. And when the time is right, you won't need to convince anyone that something has changed. Your results will do the talking for you. And this brings us to the final realization, the one that gives meaning to everything we've given so far. If you have sensed the shift, if you have stopped waiting for permission, if you have begun preparing internally and protecting the vision quietly, then there is one more truth you must embrace. The next 30 days could change everything. Now, that statement is not meant as a prediction. It is meant as a possibility. Too many people hear about transformation and imagine it happening someday, somewhere in the distant future. They assume meaningful change requires years before any visible results appear. While growth certainly takes time, life has a remarkable way of compressing long seasons of preparation into a single decisive moment. What appears sudden to others is often the result of hidden work that has been happening for months, years, or even decades. People see the breakthrough, but not the preparation. They see the opportunity, but not the discipline. They see the new chapter, but not the countless quiet decisions that made it possible. This is why you should never underestimate what can happen in a short period of time. A single conversation can alter the direction of your life. One decision can open a door that changes your future. One act of courage can move you from hesitation to momentum. One moment of clarity can reshape years of confusion. History is filled with examples of lives transformed by seemingly ordinary moments. What makes those moments powerful is not the event itself. It is the readiness of the person experiencing it. Opportunity alone is never enough. A door can open, but if a person is unprepared, they may walk right past it. A chance can appear, but if fear remains in control, they may never take it. A new season can arrive, but if they are still clinging to the old one, they may resist the very thing they once prayed for. Preparation turns possibility into reality. This is why the previous lessons matter so much. The internal shift comes first. The willingness to move without universal approval comes next. The discipline of preparing before the transition follows. The courage to embrace discomfort and the wisdom to protect the vision complete the process. These are not separate ideas. They are stages of readiness, and readiness changes everything. One of the greatest misconceptions people hold is that change happens when circumstances improve. In reality, Circumstances often improve because people change first. The external world begins responding differently once the internal world has been transformed. A person who thinks differently notices opportunities they previously ignored. A person who believes differently takes actions they previously avoided. A person who prepares differently creates outcomes that once seemed impossible. This is why the next 30 days matter, not because the calendar itself possesses any special power, but because time rewards action. Every day presents a choice. You can continue waiting for certainty, or you can begin preparing for possibility. You can remain attached to the familiar, or you can make room for what comes next. The future is shaped by these small decisions. Most people expect dramatic turning points. They imagine transformation arriving like a lightning strike. More often, it arrives through consistent choices repeated over time. The decision to trust yourself, the decision to release old limitations, the decision to stay focused despite distractions, the decision to keep moving even when the path is not completely clear. These choices seem small in the moment, but accumulated over 30 days, they can produce remarkable change, and perhaps that is the deeper lesson. The move is not merely about changing locations, circumstances, or environments. It is about becoming the person capable of thriving wherever life leads next. The true transition is internal before it is external. It begins in the mind, in the heart, and in the choices made when no one else is watching. So as you look toward the days ahead, do not ask whether the future is ready for you. Ask whether you are ready for the future, because somewhere ahead, an opportunity is waiting for the version of you that refuses to stay stuck, refuses to live in fear, and refuses to ignore the quiet call towards something greater. And when that moment arrives, may you not be found waiting, doubting, or hesitating. May you be ready, because the people who change their lives are not always the ones who know exactly what is coming. They are the ones who prepare as though it is already on the way.